thank you all for coming. This is quite a wonderful honor, and thank you everybody online that's joining. Hello everyone. You know, it's great you come to Sydney from Silicon Valley, and you never expect such a great, amazing, warm welcoming. So thank you very much. I am from Silicon Valley. We are actually not just a bubble out there floating that no one has access to. We do actually travel occasionally now and then. Our company, what we've done is we actually do tackle the hiring space on a global level, and we've really enabled gamification and hiring in order to change the way people get jobs and the way that companies hire talent and also promote talent and promote employees. I'm going to get into what we do in a second, but kind of give you more of the introduction of what gamification is. This is a buzzword, a little bit like big data, or I have a very funny saying that big data, gamification, these are all buzzwords that no one actually has any idea what any of those things are, but if you say them, you fit in. And so that's kind of where I wanted to break it down. What we do though, just in general, we kind of flip the traditional hiring process of resumes and job descriptions, and we actually turned it around and said instead, we're going to put out real-time business challenges that companies are facing, and candidates actually pitch to come up with a great idea and solve the challenge to win the job at the company. And this has been able to really, across organizations and global multinationals, has been able to really drop not only the time to hire, but really significantly drop that turnover, and also drop the cost of hiring massively. Now, a lot of people, I'm just going to introduce something really quick. Hiring, a lot of people are like, this isn't really that big a problem, right? I mean, hiring, HR is like the most unsexy technology on the planet. Why can't you just come up with something that's going to launch rockets or SpaceX or Tesla? At the same time, hiring is becoming more and more of a problem. The global workforce is 3 billion people. In the United States, we have 112 million people in the workforce. And the interesting thing with that is that actually every 2.4 years, 100% of the global workforce turns over. 100% of the entire global workforce has to be rehired every 2.4 years. So in the US, in corporations, 46% of the of corporations actually turn over. So almost half of the entire corporation turns over. Now, if you go and talk to any of those companies, they are projecting mass amounts of growth. But in order to survive, they spend, just the companies in the United States alone, they're spending 190 billion US dollars just to hire again the talent they've actually just lost. And then they're projecting growth. So it's a massive problem, and when you look at it and you say, okay, we're able to drop that turnover and we can drop that cost of hiring significantly, I'm talking about 70% on both of those, it's been a drastic change for these companies. So what is gamification? It is not playing video games or giving something away or points. Now, you guys have seen that kind of thing. What it is instead is it's actually using gaming elements in order to engage employees and get them to perform a task in a way that stimulates them and engages them, so that at the end there is a progress and a final step that they're actually receiving. So you guys, how many people are familiar or have actually performed a game and you realize at the end of it you've actually successfully done something that company wanted you to do? Raise your hand. Okay, I'm going to show you 3 people. Watch, you all have. So gaming, facts and figures. This just goes to show you where gaming really is playing in our space. And gaming is something that we do every day. It's in the households. And really when you look at the generations, which is more interesting, is actually the generations that are playing games. This is where about 30% of these are actually, 30% of individuals that are playing games are actually over 50. Now 53 of them are between the ages of 18 and 49. But it's interesting that even your younger generation, that 18% that's younger, is playing games. Then you look at the older generation, and they're also playing games. The same generation that we think, I mean, my mother is not a person in technology. My grandmother was really not a person in technology. So, as you look older and older at that demographic, they're actually more and more engaged in gaming. So the gaming market is actually projected to grow. This is pretty interesting. In the next year, it's projected to grow 1.6 billion US dollars just by the next 12 months. And so companies are pumping money into this because they're realizing that they can actually do it. Now, if you looked at the Amplify introduction, actually 3/4 of companies have now said, corporations have now said that they're looking for gamification platforms in order to stimulate their organization. So Gartner put that out, and currently 3/4 of corporations are looking for that. So the opportunities in gamification is number 1, changing behavior. Number 2, developing skills, and number 3, enabling innovation. A little bit about what Peter talked about. Innovation is you're trying to get ideas from inside someone's head to paper, to a top of an organization, then actually make those happen. Ideas are cheap, but actually making them happen is really a great opportunity. Developing skills, how do you onboard employees and actually train them to do tasks or actually become part of the company culture or really understand the process of how are they going to actually do their job and the tasks and the hierarchy of the organization. And then changing behavior. I have an interesting story. One of the top luxury hotels that's headquartered in Hong Kong I just met with, and I was having this conversation this morning. They said, well, we were very Asia-centric, the brand is very Asia-centric, but now we have hotels in Paris and in Vancouver, and we have hotels everywhere. And we're changing the way that hotel is done. If you walk into this hotel traditionally, it's very Asia-centric, it's very gold and beautiful and luxurious, and then you go outside of Asia and now it's very New York style. There's fireplaces there, and there's edgy people with earrings and nail polish, and they're changing everything. The room is, the bathroom is now the glass wall that you actually have to put down the curtains if you don't want anyone to see you. The new trends of hotels. And she said, we're having a huge issue because we've completely changed our own culture, and how are we going to be able to change that behavior of actually how we onboard and develop employees. So she said, we go to the top bar in Hong Kong and we recruit the best bartender, and this bartender's edgy. He's got tattoos everywhere, he's got earrings everywhere, his hair's spiked. But how do we actually get this person, we want this person finally to come in. It's a little weird for them to work for a hotel, but everyone's going to this guy's bar. So we get that guy, he comes in, everyone in the company is really excited because we're going to be the new bar, we're going to be the new hub and lounge for the uprising generation. Well, the guy goes through the grooming process, and he outcomes this guy that's in black with his hair black, and he's like completely the way everyone else looks. And then the guy that hired him is like, whoa, where did my edgy guy go? So you've got to change that behavior, and how do you do that when you're talking about thousands and thousands of people inside an organization? So this is where I'm going to show you that if you don't think you've played games, you actually have played games. So examples of gamification that you've played, or gamified examples you've played, credit cards. So spending money to win points so that you could continue to spend money. That's a game. How many people are on LinkedIn? Will you raise your hand again? Right. So remember when I said to you that you played a game actually to get a task done? LinkedIn, remember back, the guys that have been on there since 2007, it was like one of those places you got on LinkedIn and you're like, oh my God, I have to get off this. Your heart started racing, you're like, these people are the unemployed, people that are just kind of caving in, and you changed what you had to do and then you got off the system and you never wanted to get back on. Well, LinkedIn changed that when they really enabled gamification. And they started adding little things, progress bar. Your profile's 90% complete, 80% complete. Well, you want it to be 100% complete because that 80% is driving you nuts. It's just part of human behavior. On top of that, we all want to be influencers, right? When the guy who you know more than him, but he just got made an influencer on LinkedIn and all his stuff is read. So they actually say, well, the more you actually publish on LinkedIn, the more we're going to make you an influencer. So come on LinkedIn and keep talking, and if you comment and if you publish stuff and if you're interactive and you're on LinkedIn, then you're going to become an influencer. On top of, how many of you go on LinkedIn on a weekly basis to see who's seen your profile? None of you? If you're on LinkedIn, you should all be doing that. It's actually really cool and pretty creepy. So I need to tell you who has actually looked at your profile recently. It's a very good way for actually engaging those people because they've looked at you. You can go back and say, I was thinking about you too, basically. and I think you should buy whatever I'm trying to sell. Now, gamification, $1.6 billion is going to be spent into this sector. Now, there is a mass amount of this is just hype. There is a lot of gamification that does not work. Making people play video games, I'm going to go through a few examples, but making people play games in order to actually get a task done is something that has to be very well thought out, and it's being tested. And most of these are not going to work. Actually, 80% of them are not going to work. 80% of them are going to fail within 2 years. And so really, what are we doing in hiring that actually is going to make sure that we're not one of those 80%? So in gamification hiring, there is a huge problem of disengagement. 70% of the workforce is not engaged. Companies have tried everything from salaries to bonuses to promotions, everything, in order to try and get that engagement up, but it's not working. On top of that, new untapped opportunity. So in everything has failed as far as I just said, but also on the side of keeping employees. You know, this is something, the turnover is so massive. You've got your best people are coming in. The statistic that Peter was talking about that I had mentioned to him, by 2030, 75% of the entire global workforce is going to be millennials. What? Right? That's crazy. Do you know 10,000 baby boomers retire every day? Well, how do you get that merge of information and skills and abilities actually over to that from that older generation to that younger generation? On top of that, it's applying for jobs is a tedious process. You're not going to get any superstar to be plugging in for the 1900th time their resume that's already online, that's everywhere else. But when you apply for a job, companies post out a job description and they make employees fill out literally page after page of the exact same thing they've just submitted to the company. And the company's not going to be looking at this. So that there has to be some form of a better process on that. Big part companies don't think about is that actually, when you provide a bad candidate experience for job seekers, most of those job seekers turn around, one, they're never, ever, ever going to use that brand again, and they're going to tell their friends never to use that brand again. So actually the decline in your own customers is pretty large. About 10% will actually never touch that brand again, and they will tell their friends to never touch it again if they have a bad hiring experience. And I mean a bad hiring experience along the lines of, please fill out all these things, and then they never hear from them again. That's a bad candidate experience. And that's actually most candidate experiences. So you guys probably have seen this face before, and this one. I'm making sure all of you no one's asleep. So this was more to make sure everyone's paying attention, but also to show you, we are getting a reaction out of gaming that we've never had before. We don't make these kind of faces on a typical basis. But when you know someone's playing a game, this is exactly, if you see someone walking down the street like this or this, you're like, oh yeah, they're playing a video game, right? It's like, it's okay, but if they're walking down the street like that, you're like, oh my gosh, this is happening. So, what's good and what's bad in gamification? What's not worked? So the Marriott did an interesting play on gamification. They built this whole application. They spent a ton of money to try and do it. And what happened was actually they wanted to see, they created a hotel type world, or reality world, and they wanted to see how people would react and actually interact with the location. So really, who would you help? What kind of actions would you do? Again, getting points the more people that you shook hands with. Well, that didn't work. There was nothing that had anything to do with whether that person could actually apply that to doing a job. There wasn't any end goal. It was kind of, we want to see if you can play this game, and then maybe something's going to happen, and we want to see what that. There was just no engagement. It didn't really take off. And then at the same time, after about a year, the Marriott actually shut all of it down. What does work is Google. This one's from Google Code Jam. Google's really good at creating any kind of gamified experience. This is they've done a great job at actually creating challenges or problems that they want people to go out and hack or solve. When you do it on a development level, or developers, just put out a problem and make them hack it. We do that. When we're trying to build out our technology, we bring in a whole bunch of hackers and we want them to build it out. So it's easier because they're in the same time they're engaged, they win prizes, they're going to make money for this, and at the end, maybe they're going to qualify for a job, which is what Google really ended up doing. So implementation of gamification in the workforce, there's 4 key factors. Number 1, engagement. So you've got to engage that candidate to do something. Number 2, there has to be a meaning for it. They don't want to just go around playing a virtual hotel and see how they would interact with people. They have to be able to win, mastery, and autonomy in the sense that you've got to bring the whole organization together. So what does one page do that's different? One page has been recognized by one of the largest tech media outlets called Mashable as really the only successful technology platform that is built as a SaaS model for gamification and hiring. And the reason for that is we post real-time challenges that companies need to solve, and then candidates can pitch solutions. We look beyond anything along the lines of education, experience. We're not biased on those. Whereas most times when people apply to jobs, the first thing they look at is, did they go to Harvard or Stanford or some Ivy League college? Then they look at keywords. So again, along that line, I was telling Peter earlier, you can write in, I would never go to Harvard. Well, you get filtered out, and you get to actually be looked at that way, funny enough, because it's keywords. So other ways that they're looking for, have these people really matched existing skills or a list of job description? What one page does instead is we're actually looking at people that come up with unique ideas and how to solve it. I'm going to give you a good example. I was telling one earlier. One of our clients is a very large specialty retailer store, and they want to know how to get millennials to come into the store, not buy one item, but buy upsell and actually outfit their whole house. Now this brand is one of the largest. They have about 22,000 employees, and they have 6 brands underneath them. And this is the big challenge across the board. One of the most high demand jobs that they have is what's a buyer. People that travel around the world and select items that they should sell. Everyone wants that job. So we implemented one page and put out a challenge of exactly what I said. How are you going to have millennials come into the store and not only buy one item, but upsell as a buyer? Now, candidate that came back and actually got the job, or the top candidate that got the job, was a kid that wrote, he goes, well, this is the response through one page. So our process on when they come back, they actually have to prompt it through a series of questions that they come back with a one-page job proposal. And his response back was, I don't have any experience. I just graduated business school, so I don't have any experience. Because at the bottom it's 5 to 10 years of experience. He goes, but I'm a millennial generation, and my entire generation is obsessed with the food movement. So the whole farm to table, the entire, the whole farmers markets, the Food Network is one of the top TV stations right now. We love the whole food movement. And we have all these food meetups everywhere. We've got the food truck meetups happening. We've got the farmers markets happening. We've really enabled this. People are now coming together as a community just around food. So if you want to engage our generation, you can't keep competing up against Amazon and spamming us by email, because that's not going to work. One, Amazon has a lot more money than you do, and they're going to win. Number 2, we don't like that. We're not going to engage with you at all. However, if you want to win our demographic, you're going to have to actually start infiltrating the products across these places, all these meetups that we're having. So we said, what my idea is create pop-up shops all across the United States, starting in these cities and going to these cities. And this is how I would do it, leveraging my background and the connections I have and the introductions I have. And this is how much money it's going to make Williams-Sonoma, and this is why I want to go to Williams-Sonoma versus Restoration Hardware. That's the company. It's called Williams-Sonoma. And this went to a staffing manager. This proposal went to a staffing manager. She said, oh my God, head of staffing saw it. Head of staffing sent it to the head of HR, and head of HR sent it to the CEO of the company. The CEO of the company called me and she goes, oh my God, Joanna, I have 22,000 employees and not one person's ever said that to me. And you look at systems like that, and you look at that kind of innovation and how you engage people and how you actually, there's some kind of meeting where they say, you know what, your idea matters to us, and we might actually put it into play, and you might actually win the job here, but we want to listen to you, and we want to hear you design your own job. And that's really, in the end of the day, what it does. At the same time, that's really that whole expertise side, that mastery side, and the autonomy side, really providing the social intelligence and the research tools behind that. So we are able to, we've built in and we leverage a form of artificial intelligence called natural language processing that allows us to actually really rank and prioritize these candidates based on their ability to solve the challenge. How does one page work? So one page, the challenges are created and delivered. We create a library of challenges on 2 things. One, what's the goal of the department, and what's the goal of the company? And then we can create that library based on any open role. Candidates are they're sent a challenge in the form of, congratulations, we've selected you as one of the top in the industry, and we'd like to hear your ideas on exactly how you would design your own job. Now, if one of you received that, would you not open it up and say, wow, that's pretty done, yeah. I'm an expert, you're right. Actually, 95% of all users that receive this open it up and they start the process. So we have an insane engagement rate. Number 3, the candidates' proposals are scored and analyzed. So once they've completed the proposal, which includes what's a unique idea to solve the challenge, how much money are you going to make or save the company by working here, who are the potential competitors as well as the potential partners. So what's happening in the market, and also what part of your background allows you to be qualified to do this. We are able to rank those candidates on, do they have the right strategy, the right personal background, and do they have the right understanding on a competitive landscape? And then the top talents identified. So as far as getting all of that information, what happens when the company receives that? They have to be able to digest it. So we actually provide full analytics on all of those, on that entire, on all the responses. So we tell the company, here are your top ideas, here are the top markets you need to go into, here are the top technologies you need to be using, and here are all the top people, either inside the organization or that are new hires, that are going to make that happen. One page has been recognized pretty well. I have to thank not only my team but media in order. We get amazing attention. We've just been voted one of the top 3 HR technologies in the United States by the largest HR organization in the world. We won the next billion-dollar company by venture capitalists in Silicon Valley. We've also been really, this quote was actually from the founder of HR Tech, who started HR Tech about 17 years ago, which is the whole idea that there could be technology leveraging HR. And really the fact that we're coming in and disrupting recruiting is something that's pretty great. This was just going over the numbers that I mentioned to you earlier, and I wanted to start off there, even though I knew that this was coming. I wanted to start off with the way that you guys could understand this is a massive problem, and this engagement side of engaging these users to stay inside of the company so that they're not leaving so that they can do something where their ideas are heard, that they stay and that their ideas can be heard, they can be received by the company, and the company also can grow. You know, companies have to change as fast as change, but how do they do that if they don't have any way of getting that kind of information to the top? This is the US market, which I was explaining to you. Every year we hire 54 million people. It costs us $190 billion to do that. Thank you very much. There's my email address so that you guys have access. Please contact me. You also have my Twitter handle. Would love to hear ideas. We are a tech company, so we're all about listening to what people think, and also are very much open to companies also to work with and hearing experiences. So that's how we grow. That's how we've grown. Anyway, I'm going to open it up to questions. You guys should all think of something special to ask me. It could be really challenging.
Thank you. That platform and methodology makes more sense to me for recruitment. How about when the person is recruited, can it be applied to their onboarding experience?
Absolutely. So the exact same thing of really how, the problem is that when you employ someone, it takes at least 6 to 8 weeks to try and get that person up to speed of what they should be doing. And when you actually give them access to the information that they really need to research and then say, okay, with the information I've got, how am I going to actually go ahead and do my job? I've never onboarded an employee. And so instead, what I have them do is fill out a proposal. If they don't do it from the beginning, if they started inside the company, then it's saying, okay, what do you want to accomplish in the next 12 to 18 months that's going to really add value to this department? And that way that person gets to, again, they feel as if they're actually going through a game while they're actually working. Because not only did they write the proposal, but now they have to actually accomplish that proposal. I don't have performance reviews for my employees. I just pull out their proposal like, well, you told me you were going to do this. Where are we on this? So, I mean, it's very different. So yeah, it's a good question. Other questions? Anyone online? You guys have questions? Yes, in the green background.
Thank you. I'm in South Australia, so thanks for your time. I'm sorry, Joanna, but I missed earlier. So to get to the actual project, how do you screen the candidates to invite them to be involved in this process?
So we integrate with every existing applicant tracking system as well as job boards, so that when a company has an opening and they put out that opening, as candidates actually start sending in their resumes, we immediately capture those resumes and we send them back the challenge. So before the company has to invest time or engagement, we are able to actually immediately grab those candidates and then say to the company, here are the top candidates that you want to spend your time interviewing.
Joe, just on the back of that, how do you keep those existing candidates engaged? So when they apply for a specific role, when you've got that huge candidate pool,
Yeah.
how do you keep them interested throughout that journey?
So you mean the ones that we've already hired, correct? Or the ones that have already been hired?
One project and then keeping them in mind for another project later on.
Good question. Most companies want to hire people that can move laterally, so it's a fabulous question. We have our system, because of how we've built it, also identifies where these candidates can move. So let's say a company's looking for a branch manager. Well, they can all, what we do is we also provide saying, of these candidates, this many of them can also be personal bankers. This many of them can also be analysts, so that they can hire them as branch managers, but they can also move into these other roles. So that's one of the ways. And what companies do in that case, and one of our clients that we're bringing in is looking at doing 3 different levels of challenges. So they've got a kind of overarching higher level challenge, and then as that person gets more and more down deep, they're actually able to go into a much more specific challenge that they have to solve. So that's one of the ways that we engage.
Hi. Really just to understand how you capture engagement with really passive candidates that aren't submitting to applications.
So we do it, what we're about to launch is through a very large referral platform that we're doing that through. But one of the ways that we've been able to prove, because most of the people that end up getting a job through our system were passive candidates. And the reason for that is the way that we engage those candidates is we don't present them as if we were a recruiter. We present them saying, well, the same way that if somebody presented me and said, you know, we know that you're an expert in gamification, we'd like you to come in and talk at AFP. So it's kind of the same thing. So saying, we know that you're an expert and we'd like to hear your ideas because we're facing this challenge in our company and we want to hear how you would actually solve this challenge. And if that works out, we would like to discuss with you potentially coming over and really doing exactly that for the corporation.
And you reach those through the LinkedIn platform?
Yeah, so inside our system you can link into LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yes?
How do you handle the ID, I suppose, you collect on all the ideas?
Sure. Yeah, so when a candidate submits them, they actually say that they're giving the idea to the company. Now, one of the big parts there is that is owned by the candidate. They have now submitted to the company, so they can't go back to the company and say, oh my God, you ended up doing this 5 years later and I gave you this idea. The truth is ideas, I mean, I'm a CEO, I hear probably 100 ideas a day. People say, you should do this with your company, you should do that with your company. And I'm like, you should do that for my company. So I don't know how to do, I mean, I'm not gonna stop what I'm doing now. There's so many things that a company's trying to do, but how do you actually find people that can actually do them is why a company is looking for great ideas. On that side, what One Page does is we actually go and will actually recommend or push that candidate to another company that's facing the same challenges. So based on that idea that they have, we say that that's unique to this candidate, and that candidate can actually solve that same problem for restoration hardware if they are not accepted to Williams-Sonoma. Yes?
Do you have any challenges in terms of, for the candidates, the amount of time it takes them to keep doing all of these and response rates?
Yeah, well, we keep track. So if a candidate's filled out a proposal, we do keep track, and so that it's right there when they start another challenge. So they, a lot when it comes to why is your background uniquely qualified, what's happening in the market, that kind of information can be used but tweaked. So what it typically is going to take from 20 minutes to an hour. I had a client just recently who is one of the largest grocery distributors in the United States, and they were trying to figure out how are we going to stay alive against online competitors. We need to figure out what is our mobile angle, what's our digital angle. Because when I onboard the company, or when I brought them in as a client, the president of the company says, I say, I'm freaking out. I don't know if we're going to be able to survive as a company. And this is a company that's one of the top 200 largest privately held companies in the United States. They are making about $3 to $5 billion in revenue a year. They're massive. 22,800 employees, and they put out a challenge. I said, well, don't stay up at night. Why don't you just put out a challenge and see what your own workforce thinks of? And within 20 minutes, he was getting complete thought out strategies and proposals saying, this is what we should do, and this is how I would do it. And he called me, he was like, I cannot believe I've been sitting on this whole organization underneath me that actually could have solved my problem when I've been staying, so worried that we're going to lose track of that. And luckily enough, they were able to identify it early enough that they weren't taken out of the market, but a lot of companies don't. And so in that situation, it's that's kind of a good example of how we do it with companies. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Great. Yes.
You've partly answered my question already, but just a few more aspects of it. How do you deal with the unsuccessful candidates and keep their engagement? Because I've worked with candidates who've often been frustrated by the process of submitting a proposal as part of their application, and there can be a residual sort of frustration. I put all this work in, they didn't want it. So how do, from a gamification perspective, how do you keep those people engaged? Because they may be, future candidates. So how do you not let that frustration be directed towards you?
Sure. So what we did is something where we actually show them in the percentage of where they landed. We show them the percentage that they fell. So that if you say, well, you were in the top 70 percentile of this, so congratulations because you received a B+, no way. But if you want to strengthen your proposal, we've identified the aspects that you should change, because we know that really the strength that they failed on, because our system can read it. So we tell them you might want to strengthen these portions, and then you're actually going to have a much better result.
That's great, thanks.
Yeah.
What's your plan for Australia and Asia Pac?
What's what?
What's the plan for Australia and Asia Pac?
So we actually, our head of APAC is standing in the back of the room, Justin Beard. Justin was running innovation at Google beforehand, and really provides quite an amazing skill level. He's also the reason I'm standing in front of you. So he is very familiar, or very close to AMP and the team here. And we're actually filing public right now, and we go public August 1st on the ASX. So it's a big market for us, and it's important for us. Asia has some serious problems. You look at Southeast Asia, they're a very important market for us, and I think here in Australia too. So what we are going to do is we're going to scale out at the same time that we're really, as we continue to succeed here, we're going to continue to scale out the team. Do you need a job? I'm always poaching talent, so be careful.
Okay, that's it.
And it's over.
Look, I just have one question to ask of you. Obviously, thank you so much for coming along and telling us and giving us insight to how this part of how we hire, how we attract, and how we keep people is changing. I'm interested in you just talking through some ideas about, we're going through big organisational shifts right around the world at the moment. We're trying to get flatter, we're trying to get leaner, we're trying to get more responsive, we're trying to get closer to the customer. I also just acknowledge that there's a fair bit of challenge now for hierarchical organisations where we have to send everything up to the top of the pyramid and see if it's saluted or not and see what happens. Yeah. I'm kind of interested about how the way that you start attracting talent then kind of challenges that hierarchy. I'm just wondering if you had what kind of thoughts, how have tops of hierarchies responded to this? And does it also worry them as well?
Sure. I think as you see this change in the workforce, the nice thing is that even the hierarchy, or the higher levels, are typically the older generations, and they've been there for a very long time, and they're looking at how do we leverage what we know, but at the same time allow new ideas to come up so that that expertise is balanced. And so in that case, they don't resist it. In the side where, we've had some of our clients say, we're going to start with all of our SVPs. And so they challenge all the SVPs, and they want to know what's happening in their departments. And sometimes that's not a very good result, because you're going to get the guys that everyone thinks is, he's been there forever, and he's, kind of the you guys I'm sure have experience with this, where this person's got all the bells and whistles and they've been there for a long time, but at the end of the day, they don't really know what's going on. And so you very quickly, or the company very quickly identifies that person. It also identifies the new SVP that's standing in the corner that no one thinks has a great idea, that goes, oh my God, he knows exactly what's going on. And so what's happened there is, if this person doesn't, the other guy doesn't leave, but they say, okay, this is where you're going to have to get a better grasp on your organization, and say, okay, with this, we know we can allow that channel of information to come much better. When you look at the hierarchy of information, it's a telephone game. So by the time it actually gets to the top, from where it started, the idea and the whole way it's going to happen is going to change significantly. So instead, even using a platform like OnePage, we gave that transparency through the entire organization. So allowing it to be opened up and allowing the organization to actually vote on ideas and collaborate on ideas creates that kind of a hierarchy on a smaller level in different, different groups, so that you still have heads, but inside of those groups or inside of those departments, they can actually have ideas and actually run with them and feel like they're being heard, so that eventually they can get there. Because no one wants to think that's a never, that goal is never going to happen. And as you said earlier, when you squeeze that hierarchy, there isn't that stepping ladder anymore. But sometimes that stepping ladder, there's all sorts of ways that, would there be a chance for one of these employees to hear, I'm sure, ever talk to you on an idea of what they think would happen on, talent engagement. And in the end, I'm sure they have some great ideas, but it's hard to get that kind of information because you have to rely on their department heads in order to get it. So that way, there's something really positive with squeezing it. The resistance comes when people resist change. We've all done that. We've all been like, no. I mean, America was king of that. We were like, no, the workforce is not going to change. All the labor work is going to come back. No, it's not. And once we realized it, we said, okay, we're going to make a change for that. There is no labor workforce is not going back. That jobs are not coming back. The guys that are going to be getting replaced by technology. Once we realized that, we were able to say, okay, what do we want to build that leverages those same people in a different way? So it's a little bit, that's where our biggest resistance is going to come when people say, no, we don't want to hear the organization's ideas because this works really well. It only works for a very short amount of time these days. Because then your best talent's going to leave and start competitors. And we've seen that over and over again.